It was supposed to be an ordinary Tuesday morning. The air was crisp, the kind that bites your nose just enough to remind you winter is near, and the streets were half awake under a pale sunrise. Claire had left the house earlier than usual, hoping to grab a coffee before her shift at the small bookstore where she worked. She was thinking about nothing in particular, just the usual mental list of bills to pay, groceries to buy, and the fact that her favorite pair of gloves had gone missing again. Her car's heater hummed quietly, and the radio played an old song that made her tap her fingers against the steering wheel. That's when she saw him. At first, it was just a flicker at the edge of her vision, a man standing on the side of the road near a bus stop, hunched over in a way that didn't seem like he was just waiting for a ride. His coat looked too thin for the weather, his face pale and drawn, and one of his hands clutched his chest. She drove past him, like most people would. The world had taught her to be careful, to keep moving. But something about the way he was swaying, his knees bending as if they might give out, made her slow down. She argued with herself for a moment. She was already running on a tight schedule, and helping a stranger could be risky. But then she remembered her father's words from years ago: if you see someone in trouble, and you can help without hurting yourself, you stop. You help. Always. She turned the car around. When she pulled up beside him, the man's eyes barely lifted to meet hers. "Are you okay?" she called out through the open window. His lips parted as if to answer, but no sound came out. That was all it took. Claire was out of the car and by his side in seconds. She noticed his skin was clammy, and his breathing was shallow. I don't feel," he whispered, before collapsing forward. Instinct kicked in. She caught him awkwardly, her knees buckling under his weight, and quickly lowered him to the ground. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She'd never been in a situation like this. Her fingers fumbled for her phone. 911, she said out loud, almost as if reminding herself what to do. She gave the operator their location, her voice trembling. The dispatcher asked if she knew CPR. Her mind flashed back to a first aid course she'd taken years ago at the bookstore as part of a safety workshop. She hadn't thought she'd ever use it. But now, she was counting aloud, pressing down on his chest in steady, desperate rhythm. People started to gather: a woman in a red coat, a teenager holding a skateboard, a man walking his dog, but no one stepped forward to help, only to watch. Claire didn't care. All that mattered was keeping him here, keeping him breathing, until the ambulance arrived. It felt like hours, but it was only minutes before the sirens cut through the cold morning air. Paramedics rushed over, gently moving her aside. She stood up, her hands shaking, her palms sore from the pressure she had been applying. One of them looked at her and said, "You probably saved his life." If you hadn't started when you did. He didn't finish the sentence, but she understood. They loaded the man onto a stretcher, attaching tubes and wires, and sped away. Claire was left standing there, her breath fogging in the air, her coffee forgotten in the cup holder of her car. She drove to work in silence, her mind replaying every second, every sound. 2 days later, while she was rearranging books in the shop, the bell above the door chimed. She looked up and froze. It was him, cleaned up, dressed warmly, and smiling. He looked healthier, though still a bit pale. A woman was with him, her eyes shining with tears. "You're Claire, right?" he asked. She nodded, too stunned to speak. "I'm Daniel. This is my sister, Megan. I needed to thank you. The doctor said I had a massive heart attack. If you hadn't stopped, His voice cracked, and Megan stepped forward, hugging Claire tightly. The warmth of that hug cut through every bit of cold she'd felt that morning on the roadside. Claire realized something in that moment: kindness isn't always about grand gestures. Sometimes it's about a small decision made in the span of a heartbeat. The choice to turn around, to stop, to care. As they left the shop, Claire stood for a moment in the quiet, the smell of paper and coffee in the air, and felt an overwhelming gratitude that she had been there at that exact moment. Because sometimes, without even realizing it, you're not just part of someone's story, you're the reason they get to keep living it.